Hi everyone, welcome to Cephas Mix. I'm quickly going to talk about the controls on the compressor. Now, if you're a beginner in the mixing world and you've been finding it difficult to make good use of a compressor, then this video is really going to be helpful for you. Okay, now there are 5 basic controls on the compressor. You have your threshold, ratio, attack time, release time, and your makeup gain. The first control I'm going to talk about is threshold. Now, what is a threshold? Threshold is the level that is set that triggers the compression start and end point or sequence. Now, let me explain this in a more simpler manner. You see these white waves here? They are the incoming audio signal that comes into the compressor. And this black line that you see that crosses through the waves is your threshold. Now, this line can either come down or it goes up, depending on how you set the levels of your threshold. Now, whatever audio signal that is above the threshold is compressed most of the times, and whatever signal that is below the threshold most of the times is not compressed at all. So what do I mean by threshold? Is the level that is set that triggers the compression start and end sequence. What I mean by that is threshold is the level that is set. So this line is my level. I can either take my levels up or down. And whatever signal that is above the threshold, that is my start point, where the compression actually starts working. It triggers the starting point of the compression. Then whatever signal that is below the threshold, that is my end point or my end sequence, where the compression stops working. Okay? Now the next control I want to talk about is ratio. Ratio is the amount of compression that takes place after an audio signal crosses the threshold. Let's say, for an example, a 10:1 ratio. What does this mean? It means that for every 10 dB of gain increment above the threshold, the compressor lets out only 1 dB and levels down the rest 9 dB. Now, ratio is the amount of compression that takes place after the signal crosses the threshold. Now, here is a ratio of 10:1, meaning for every 10 dB of gain increment above the threshold, the compressor is only going to let out 1 dB and level down the rest 9 dB, as you can see in the diagram here. This is what I mean by ratio, and a ratio of 10:1. And it can also go for ratio of 4:1, 3:1 is the same thing, meaning 3:1 means for every 3 dB of gain increment above the threshold, the compressor is only going to let out 1 and level down the rest 2 dB. Now, let's talk about attack time. Attack time refers to the time it takes an audio signal to become fully compressed after it crosses the threshold, and it is usually in milliseconds. Okay, now back to our diagram again. Here is your incoming audio signal. Here is the threshold. So attack time simply means the time that it takes for the compressor to start working immediately this signal crosses the threshold. So it's the time that it takes for the compressor to start working immediately this signals cross the threshold. Now let's go over to release time. Release time refers to the time that it takes for the audio signal to return back to a no compression state after the signal drops below the threshold. Now look at our diagram again. This is your audio signal and this is the threshold. Release time is that time that it takes for these signals that are below the threshold to return to a no compression state, meaning the time that it takes for them to return to that normal state they were, that they had no compression on them. That is the release time. Immediately the signal drops below the threshold. The time that it takes for those signals below the threshold to return back to the normal state with no compression, that is referred to the release time. The last control I'm going to talk about is the makeup gain. Now, what is the makeup gain? Makeup gain is the output level that is used to support or compensate for volume lost during compression. Because when you tend to look at it, compression simply means automatic volume control. So when you apply compression on an audio signal, you tend to lose volume. The makeup gain is there to compensate for volume lost, where you can turn the knob up to add for the volume that has been lost during compression. Hope you understand. Now let me do a demonstration of everything that we have learned here, from our threshold, ratio, attack time, release time, and makeup gain. Hi, I'm going to do a little bit of demonstration here. I'm going to try to add punch and clarity to my kick drum. I'm going to be using a API 2500 compressor. So now let's hear our kick drum. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the levels of my threshold first. Now I'm looking to do about -2 dB of gain reduction. So let's set our threshold. Voila, that's -2 dB of gain reduction. So I'm going to go over to my ratio. I'm going to give it about 2:1. Then I'm going to come over to my attack time here. Fast attack time really comes up with that boomy sound. A lot of the bottom starts sticking out. I don't want that for this kick drum. I just want punch. So I'm going to give it about a fairly slow attack time, about 3 milliseconds. Yes, you're starting to hear that punch, right? I'm going to leave my release time very fast because the kick has no tails there. It just hits and goes. So immediately the signal drops below the threshold, I want the compressor to let go very fast. So I'm going to leave my release time very fast. Now let's listen to before. If you listen carefully to the before signal, it is a lot boomy and sounds so wide and uncontrolled. Now listen to the after signal. The after signal is sharp, straight in your face, and has more punch and clarity to it. Now if you look over here at our meter, we're doing about a -4 dB of gain reduction, and I don't want that. I just want -2. So I'm going to move my threshold back. Okay, I think that's good. So if you listen to the before signal again and listen to the after, you can figure out that the gain or the volume has been reduced in the after signal. So we're going to use the makeup gain here to give it a little bit of volume. So let's say I do a 2 dB of gain increment. Let's listen again to before. After. You can see that the after signal has more punch and clarity to the kick drum. So that is it, boys and girls. I will see you in the next of my videos. Bye for now.